I'm sure you all can recall an election that you deemed highly important for you, for your community, even for your whole country. This could have been, for example, presidential elections, parliamentary elections, local elections, or even any kind of smaller scale voting, or, for example, a referendum. So now, when you have an example in your head, try to recall what you had been feeling at that time, what you were doing. So, for example, you were probably following the electoral campaigns, checking the surveys all the time, exchanging opinions with friends. And then, when the big day, the election day, has finally come, you have been impatiently waiting for the results to be announced. And then, finally, they were published. But if you didn't find them satisfactory for you, to say the least, you are probably feeling great disappointment and helplessness. And then, the voter turnout was officially published. And in your judgment, it was just unacceptably low. You were probably feeling very upset at the time, and I'm sure that you are wondering how the results would be different now, if only more people would have voted. The voter turnout is a subject that I would like to talk to you about today. I'm not going to dwell on too much on the fact that voting is your civic's responsibility and that it's crucial for the proper functioning of democracy, because I'm sure that you all have heard these statements multiple times, and they are true. However, today I would like to focus more on the underlying reasons of voter turnout and analyze the possible solutions. Doing this will enable us to finally answer the big question: is low voter turnout really tantamount to the decline of democracy? Or is it just a natural occurrence that cannot really be influenced? Nowadays, we can observe different attitudes towards this phenomenon. Some people are sure that if we observe low voter turnout, it means that apathy has dominated our society. People that do not vote are even being socially accused of being lazy, uninterested, and apathetic. On the other hand, there are many people that state that it's completely normal that some social groups do not vote, and that there is really not much we can do to change it. So, what if I told you that low voter turnout neither means the decline of democratic societies, nor is, however, an acceptable occurrence? Let me tell you why. Firstly, let's analyze the underlying reasons of this phenomenon. I would suggest dividing them into three categories. The first one would be quite self-explanatory. But the two ones, this would be where it will be really interesting, because for me, they would be the ones that can really influence the turnout. So the first category is related to all the unprecedented and external factors. For example, there are many people who live in underdeveloped areas and cannot really go to the nearest voting station the election day. There are also many people who, because of their disability or because of their age, cannot also access the station on their own. There are also migrants who have troubles with obtaining an official state ID, which is required for voting, and therefore they cannot really vote. Also, another factor that influences the turnout is the day when the elections are held. In most countries, the election have to be held on a bank holiday day, like Sunday, for example, as in Poland. However, unfortunately, it is not the case everywhere in the world. For example, in the USA, the presidential elections are held on Tuesdays. And this poses a great dilemma to workers who cannot really quit their workplace, on the election day and go queue up in the next polling station. So as I was mentioning, all these examples that exclude people from voting, you have probably noticed that we can influence some of them, but we cannot really make them disappear immediately. Of course, we can try to change the election day for a bank holiday day instead of a day in a working week. Of course, we can facilitate voting by proxies, mail-in voting, or early voting for people that cannot vote in any other ways. However, we will be never able to predict everything that can happen in an unforeseen matter. So this was the first category. Now let's move on to the two ones where it really gets interesting. I firstly want to talk about the norms, customs, and habits that are developed in societies. Let me give you an example. If a young person sees a campaign where the politicians address mainly the issues like taxation, children, properties, etc., these young people can notice that, okay, these are really important matters. However, these are not the matters that influence the young people the most at their stage of life. When people see these kind of campaigns, they don't really feel represented by parties. And then they decide that the issues presented do not really matter for them that much. Next example. I would like to talk about the neglected and isolated groups in societies. People who are, for example, migrants, minorities, etc., are in a way excluded from society. And in the political life, they are not given enough representation. Because of their socio-economic situation, they seem to display a low level of participation in traditional activities that regulate social and political life. However, they do not have lower concern for politics than the rest of the population. Why is that? They know that politics influences their life. However, they feel that their voice is not being taken into account by politicians. Then, this norm of not voting because not being represented becomes prevalent in societies. And these people repeat saying these opinions. These people then have families, they have friends, and then this norm of not going to vote becomes very widespread. There are also young people who lead so many social initiatives. They participate in so many protests, volunteer, they raise their voice so much on important issues. However, they are still a group that shows low voter turnout. Behind that, there are plenty explanations that aggravate the situation. I'm mainly talking about the attitudes of older groups. How many times, for example, have you heard that young people do not have experience in life, and how can young people make responsible and wise choices in elections that would influence the whole country? I'm pretty sure that you will hear these statements a lot. So what happens then? Then the young people catch this way of thinking, and they think, oh, maybe actually they really lack this experience and this knowledge necessary to vote responsibly. And they feel that, right, maybe they are not going to vote because their opinion may not be really well thought through, and they don't want to have that much influence on the whole society. On top of that, the city's educational school is also insufficient. Young people, regardless of their socioeconomic situation, are rarely being taught that their opinion matters. They grow not feeling eternally obliged to vote in these elections. They do not make further research, they do not check the news about politics, and the vicious circle continues. People become disconnected from politics. So this was the first group of reasons why people don't vote, the first important one. And then the second one that I'm going to talk to you about is related to the mutual relations of the electorate and political parties. Let me give you an example. If political campaigns do little outreach to young people, then these people think they are being neglected. So then they vote less. What happens next is that politicians know that young people vote less, so they target their campaigns less into young people and more into other groups of people. You see, that's another vicious circle that's being created. People also get dissatisfied then with political parties. People criticize every politician, but they don't really show the will to change their behavior. They just feel that the society is stuck in the impasse where the political scene doesn't represent all of the social groups. So these were the main reasons why some people do not vote. And now we can move on to the proposed solutions. As I told you, of course, we can facilitate voting, for example, by voting by proxies, mail-in voting, postal voting, etc. Of course, we can change the election day. However, these are not the solutions that, in my view, would influence the core of the problem. You know, the main thing about democracy is that it is supposed to represent the will of as vast groups as possible. So, for example, when only a minority of society votes in elections, then the outcome is the representation of the views of the minority and it impacts the whole society. So it's natural that we want the whole society to vote. So some would say that we can make elections obligatory. However, have you thought that when you make elections obligatory, you basically force people to go to polling stations, and some of them would go there either way, but some of them also would go there because they don't want to pay a fine for not voting. So what would really influence this problem? In my judgment, it is the change in the norms and habits prevalent in societies, and the change in the mutual relations of political parties and the electorate. These would only enable us to establish a long-lasting solution and to create a society where both sides, the electorate and the political parties, actually care about each other and want to participate in the political life. So, the next time you will be able to take part in an election, I would like you to remember the winner, the true winner, will be the person, will be every person